Okay, so firstly, you said that India has a lot of talents, and I'm going to dispute that if we discuss that thing later. But let's talk about the foreign policy of India. India has no foreign policy. The only policy Indian government and Indians have is expediency. Whatever works, whatever they think is materially beneficial to them is what they have. And that is the reason why India has always been a non entity in the world affairs. No one really cares because India is always happy to be shoved around wherever the forces move them. All India cares about is acquisition of resources and how to fit in most comfortably and most luxuriously in the world. So if it helps them fit in with Russia, they would fit in with Russia. If they can cheap oil from Russia, they will adjust their foreign policies to get cheap oil. If there's a crisis in Israel, they immediately came out in support of Israel. And then very likely a few hours later, they got some messages from some other parties. So they immediately took the side of Palestinians. So India foreign policy, they moved around depending on whatever the forces are asking them to do.
So it's flip-flopping, basically. That's what they are going with.
Absolutely. All is convenience.
Yeah, but isn't that problematic, Jashan? Isn't that problematic if you keep acting like this on a global stage? You are sort of giving the wrong message you're sending about your lack of credibility if you keep wishy-washy from one policy to the next. I mean, I understand about strategic interests, but for India to be playing both sides, that's just not going to bode well in the long term. What do you think?
Well, so 1 out of 5 babies born on the planet is an Indian baby. Indian population is a huge chunk of the planet's population. We cannot ignore that. The problem is that there is no values driving that country, and that reflects in the foreign policies of that country. And that is why India is, as I said, a non-entity. No one really cares about India. Now, David, I go to a lot of investment conferences, and it's very interesting. There's usually an ending panel discussion in which people say, "What are you most excited about?" And some people say they are most excited about India, and that is lip service because there's no other discussion, there's no other speech on India. They ignore India throughout the conference, but then they pay lip service. And exactly the same thing happens in foreign affairs, in the international media, in international forums. They talk gloriously about India, but only to provide lip service just for political correctness. Look at what happened in South Africa recently during a so-called BRICS meeting in which no one gets along really, and the only entity there is China. Modi was, the president came to pick up from the airport in Johannesburg. However, they sent a junior minister to pick up Narendra Modi. Narendra Modi refused to get off his plane unless a more senior minister came to pick him up from the airport. So no one really cares. We have to beg for respect. And we are begging for respect. Please respect me. And that's what you see on the social media. Indians beg for respect. Look at our moon mission. Look at this thing. So look at all the CEOs in American companies. So we beg. But unfortunately, David, I can't beg respect from you. It's an inherently contradictory concept. It's an oxymoron to be asked begging for respect.
Yeah, because respect is earned. You're absolutely correct. Interesting, Giant. You brought up 2 key points there. You brought up China and you brought up BRICS. I've been having a lot of conversation with some, close friends of mine, people who understand about geopolitics a little bit, and given my work previously in Washington, D.C. and so forth. And one key theme that's been coming up more and more about the BRICS as an entity, the argument has always been that India is the weak link in BRICS. In other words, India could be the one holding the progress of BRICS moving forward. What do you think? Is there some truth into this?
Well, India is, as I said, is a non-entity. India's influence on foreign trade, on the global trade, is minimal. India has a minimal amount of import and very minimal amount of exports. India imports about 50% more than what it exports, and this is all very minimal. The total exports of India is only about 400 billion, which is actually, from the perspective of the planet, does not really matter.
Yeah.
So the only thing in BRICS is actually China. There's nothing else behind it. Chinese don't like to be be seen as China. They want to diffuse themselves within a larger entity, just not to be seen as the bossy guy there. But the only country that I see in BRICS is China and nothing else. Maybe Russia to an extent, but they are the only two countries there. As I said, India is a non-entity. It does not matter. Their foreign policy has no value. Their imports are mostly oil and gold. So their imports don't value because they will import those things anyway. These are fungible commodities, and their exports are very limited. Their significance in world affairs is minimal. India is a non-entity.
So when we hear about the India-China rivalry, that's nothing but hypes. No more, because I don't see what kind of rivalry, what India has to offer for it to be in a rivalry with China. The economies are completely different.
Well, I was in China for 3 weeks last month, and I meet young Chinese people. I try to talk with people in China. For Chinese, India does not matter. If you talk to a normal Chinese, he has no concept of India. Whereas in India, Indians are obsessed with China and Pakistan because they always want to compare themselves with others and how good they are compared to other people. Now, Chinese economy on per capita basis in the 70s and even in early 80s was worse than that of India. Today, Chinese economy is 5.5 times that of India on per capita basis. And this ratio continues to increase in the favor of Chinese, of the people. And virtually every Chinese that I talk with tells me that, hey, you have so many senior members of managements in big companies in the US who are Indian. So Indians are geniuses, and they actually have a very positive expectation from the future of India. And when I tell them that that isn't going to come to fruition, they actually don't like hearing that, because they want India to grow well. They want India to do well, because my neighboring country doing well is always good for me, as is the case between Canada and the US. They want each other country to do well. Why should I not want India or Pakistan or Bangladesh or China to do well?
Yeah.